Hello everyone, thanks for watching. This is going to be an attempt, and I say an attempt, at talking about the new 50th anniversary release of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. The reason I say attempt is because, quite frankly, there's a lot of ground to cover. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get everything. So much that I mean to say that I'm going to forget probably, and it's also a little bit of a kind of intimidating video to make because I know this particular video is going to be watched by a lot more people than most of my videos are. People who are going to want to get an idea of whether they should buy the set or not. So I'm going to say right from the top that this is just one man's opinion. There are a lot more opinions out there on YouTube and in writing, on message boards, Beatle forums, everywhere. So this is just my 2.5 cents, like I like to say. And it doesn't necessarily mean this is the definitive review that you should go by. Well, I do have some notes here in front of me to help me out because I'm bound to forget stuff. Even with the notes, I'm sure I'm going to forget some things. But this is going to help me out a little bit. So, to start out with, I want to say, this new release that's out, a lot of times it's hard to really be objective about it for me because if you're like me and you're a big fan of the Beatles, if that's where you're coming from and you've been listening to this stuff for many, many years, say 40, 50 years, you're really going to have these things etched into your brain. The songs are what they are. The mixes are what they've always been. The versions, whether they're stereo or mono, are going to be the ones that you've been used to hearing your whole life. And it's indelible. It's part of your psyche. You can't erase that. So it's very tough sometimes to listen to a new mix with a new set of ears and open-mindedness, which is what you got to try to be. Some people are kind of purists in the sense that they don't want anybody messing around with the mixes. The mixes are what they were. Some people figure, and that's what the Beatles put out. George Martin and the Beatles, that's what it is. That's how it should remain. I'm kind of like that, but at the same time, I don't mind a different take as long as it's not too extreme and as long as it's not going to render the originals completely null and void. And that's certainly not going to be what happened in this case, so that's fine. But yeah, I'm going to start by saying that I'm going to be talking about the CD, I'm going to be talking about the vinyl, and I'm going to be talking about something about the 6 CD deluxe set. Well, starting with the CDs here, I'm going to talk about. First thing I did was, before I actually got my 6 CD deluxe set in the mail, I just went out and got the 2 CD edition. And what I'm going to talk about first is the compact disc exclusively. Now, let me tell you, I'm also going to say I'm not an audiophile. There's a lot of people that have these high-tech systems. They spend thousands and thousands of dollars for state-of-the-art systems, turntables, styluses, speakers. That's not me, folks. So I have a modest set here. And when it comes to the compact disc I was talking about, I listen to my CDs in my car. A lot of people might think that negates any kind of review right there. But for me personally, I love the way the CDs sound. Maybe it's my car system is different than some others, but my car system really is good. I mean, it sounds really good. So when I listen to my compact discs, what I like to do is I like to play them in my car as I'm driving along. And that's what I did with the CD. Now, on regular compact discs, not the Beatles one, but on any other compact disc I would play, I tend to like my music very loud when I'm in the car, and I'm here in a very tiny apartment, so I can't really crank up my music. But when I'm in the car, I like to crank up the volume. My volume goes up to number 35. I don't mean to sound like that routine in the movie, This is Spinal Tap, where this talking about the volume going up to 11 or whatever. But I usually go to max. 33, 34, 35 tops is what my car system can handle, and I usually go to 35. And my music, when I listen to it on regular CD, sounds very loud and very, appealing. Well, that's what I did when I listened to this. From force of habit, I guess, I went right up to 33, 34, 35 max. And as a lot of you are probably thinking already, who've heard this already, this is like a lot of CDs today, most, maybe all CDs today, this is recorded very loud. It's very loud mix, very loud. Again, I apologize if I'm not using the right words. I'm not an audiophile, like I say. just the way it's rendered is very loud. So I'm listening to this already loud, new version at the top volume in my car at 35. And quite frankly, the first time I played this, the new 50th edition, I did not really like most of it at all. Now, some of it I did, but I didn't like it at all. And I was all prepared thinking I was going to have to come here and I was going to have to give a negative review, or at least a 50-50 review on this. But I'm happy to say that I listened to it twice more, and I thought, well, what if I turn the volume down to 15 or 16? I went from 35 down to 15 or 16 because, quite frankly, the recording volume on this, the level is already so powerful and in your face and loud that you don't have to crank it up to 35. So, oh, something else. I see already. I forgot something that I wanted to say off the top. I'm going to just interject it now. A lot of people watching this are going to notice I'm going to complain about a few things here. And I know there's going to be people out there that are going to remember a video I made, quite a few videos back now, about people who are complaining about this new upcoming release of the Sgt. Pepper 50th. This is no contradiction. This is no hypocrisy on my part. The old video that I made I was referring to people who complain about something when it's announced. They haven't even seen it yet. They haven't even held it in their hands, and they already got their minds made up it's going to be lousy, or the price is too high, or why are they including this? Why aren't they including that? And I thought that this particular release of the Sgt. Pepper Deluxe set, which I'm going to show now here, I'll get to in a bit, this box set, this 6-disc set here, they were already complaining about it, finding things to whine about. And that's different from what I'm doing here, where I've actually heard everything, seen the video that's here and everything, and I'm actually going to give the assets and the liabilities. Yeah, so back to what I was saying. Yeah, I was really going crazy when I heard the CD for the first time, because while I like the fact, for example, that Ringo's drums are brought up louder, which has always been a pet peeve of mine. I think Ringo's an underrated drummer, and I like his drumming, but I wish on the original Beatle recordings, even the earliest of the recordings, it always seems to me that they weren't brought up, the drums, enough. So I'm so glad when they're remixed to a point where you can hear more of Ringo on it. I've often thought that when you listen to a lot of Beatles outtake on bootlegs and things like that, you hear Ringo's drums more prominently than you do even on the released records, and I think that's insane. So I'm glad for that. So it was good to hear Ringo's drums on this new 50th Pepper being brought up. I mean, it's a real revelation. The drums also sound very natural. Not only are they louder, but they sound more like full, as if you're actually listening to them in a room rather than on a record, or CD, whatnot. So that I'm appreciative. But on that first listen, when I had the level cranked up too loud, on the song especially, Good Morning, Good Morning, I really thought that Ringo's drums were insanely loud. I mean, that one boom in between every, line, I thought it was so definite. I was like, this is incredible. It was one loud assault that first listen. Boom, boom, boom. And every song was like that. And I was like, you heard different instruments kind of competing for each other. You got the vocals up loud. And I'm a fan of that, by the way. Whenever I listen to something, I like to have the vocals discernible. I'm very big on that. I don't like vocals being quiet and the music being louder. I like the vocals up front and loudest with the music. But here everything seemed to be competing for each other. And at first I was thinking that, I'm not going to really dig this very much. Well, anyway, like I say, I'm happy to say that once I started taking the volume down to a more, sane level, 15, you don't need to crank this one up too loud. Now, the first thing that I'm going to pay a compliment to with this new release is that the Beatles struck me as really sounding like a hard rockin' band on this 50th Pepper release. That's the first positive asset I want to say. A lot of people think the Beatles weren't rock and roll. The Beatles never rocked. That's a lot of horse shit to begin with. We can go and make a whole other video about that. I'll give you a lot of examples of how they rocked throughout their career. But on this particular release, the 50th anniversary of Pepper, you really get a feeling that they're a rock band. They're rocking. And we start off with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, for example. Right away, the guitars stand out amazingly. That's the first thing that hits me. And Paul's voice is really pronounced too on it. But what really hits me on the opening song of Sergeant Pepper is, and I'm going to check my notes again, is definitely the guitar. And Paul's bass throughout the whole album, the remix, the new version, it's just fantastic. Now, again, right, I'm talking about the CD here, but I think what I'm gonna do is say there was something about the CD that seemed a little less natural to me for some reason. People are talking about, again, I don't know about all this stuff, DR or dynamic range and compression and this and that. Something, again, for me, I'm just a novice here. I'm not an expert in sound and everything and music. I just basically thought there was something amiss here. Something didn't sound right, even though I was appreciating it. Something was a little different. I had heard that the vinyl version, which I'm going to hold up now, but the vinyl version here, the LP set, it actually does a better job in sounding better with this new mix. And I should mention before I forget that, what Giles Martin did, the son of George Martin, when he arranged this, produced it, and whatnot, is he went from the mono. A lot of times, everybody goes on and on about the mono version of Sgt. Pepper, how much better the mono version is. Even the Beatles themselves and George Martin wanted the mono version. Personally, for me, I grew up with the stereo version. I've heard the mono version, but every time I hear it, it's an interesting curio to me, the mono version. I grew up with my ears accustomed to the stereo version. But what Giles Martin did for this release is he made a new stereo version out of the mono. I think the results are mostly thumbs up. As I say, when you listen to either version, whether it's the CD or the vinyl, and I do agree, I played the vinyl here, and I think the vinyl sounds even better in this case. So in case you're wondering which one to get, the vinyl is an asset. I really do think that the Beatles are a rocking band. They rock more. The drums, the bass, the guitars, all up top. You can hear it more realistically, full in the room with you. Like maybe if you're close as you can get to maybe sitting in the studio as opposed to listening to it on a record. That's at least my take on it. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the song Sgt. Pepper with a little help from my friends. Fantastic vocal from Ringo. The drums again, the drum parts just brought up to the front. The bass, and I hear new sounds on a lot of these tracks. I hear new sounds, new nuances, things that might always have been there, but unless you were fly on the wall in the studio, you didn't get to hear them. But now you get to hear them. Although in some cases, at the same time, with some of these Giles Martin mixes, and that not just here, but that also goes back to when Giles Martin worked on some of the songs from the new One Plus CD that came out a while ago. I thought that I didn't like some of the mixes. I didn't like his Penny Lane on that particular new mix of it. I thought that while some things were brought up and you could hear things you never heard before, which is great, some things I was expecting to hear again from that old memory of being around listening 40, 50 years, whatnot. Some things were gone. I'm like, where's that? I'm supposed to hear that now. It's gone. So that's the trade-off you have sometimes. Okay, and I'll get to that when I talk about Lovely Rita, among other things. So Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, I noticed a lot of, again, strong bass and drums. A lot of people are saying that the new version of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, they think that John's voice isn't swaying around mystically enough. I would tend to agree with that a little bit, but overall, I found that John's voice is, in this new release is pronounced, in the center, strong. You have enough of the dreamy quality going on, but I think I would have liked it if it sounded a little more spacey, but it's just a quibble. I'm happy with the version. Now, in the song Getting Better, I heard some more drum sounds in it that I had never heard before. And by the way, I'm just going to interject because I forgot. These notes that I'm reading from, where I'm going song by song by song, is based off the vinyl that I listen to here in this room. It's not based on the CD I listen to in the car. This is the vinyl I'm talking about, not the CD. Okay, yeah, so both Getting Better and Fixing a Hole together, I thought had more bass, more nuances, more drum sounds, things I hadn't heard before. I might even take that into Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. Very powerful. These last three songs really come alive on this particular version. She's Leaving Home. I have a bias, I have to admit, for the slow version that was included on the stereo mix, because it's been so long that I heard it that way, and it's supposed to be a kind of sad, downbeat, gloomy song anyway, so it's kind of difficult for me to adjust to it with the regular vocal that, of course, it has always been prevalent on the mono version originally. But it's quickly growing on me, and I'm getting accustomed to it at the normal speed, if you will. And as presented here on this particular album, it's just beautiful. The strings have never sounded more crisp, and John's backing vocal with it, it's terrific. When you flip the vinyl over and you get to Within You, Without You, and again, the same is true of this song pretty much for the CD. I really like the George vocal on this new version of Within You, Without You. I thought it was really more upfront, more in command, just more centered. It always seemed like so many things now when you listen to the new version were kind of like distant. This is more up center, and I really like it. And I also noticed the instruments, the Indian instruments and whatnot, sounded clearer. I thought there was a dramatic improvement in Within You, Without You. And the laughter at the end of the track that goes into just before When I'm 64, it's supposed to be, before you hear When I'm 64. The laughter at the end is way louder. The little giggling or jolly chuckling that they do at the end is way louder. Then it goes into When I'm 64, and I noticed what I thought was an error. Now again, I apologize for those out there who are purists for the mono version of this Pepper album, but although I've heard the Pepper plenty of times in mono, I'm still got used to the stereo. That's what I've got in my mind. So When I'm 64 on this new 50th anniversary version, I thought it was a little odd that the laughing track from Within You, Without You kind of laughed its way right into When I'm 64. I always remember When I'm 64 starting cold without the laughter at the beginning. This laughter from the previous song seemed to segue into it. Now, listen for yourself and let me know what you think of that. But I don't know if it was always like that on the mono version, or maybe I've never noticed it before till now somehow. But it sounded new to me. But I'll tell you a positive swing of that. So if the crowd, in a way that, if you think about it, with When I'm 64, the beginning, you could have the concept of the concept album that people say are lost after the first couple of tracks with the audience interaction. Now you could say they kind of restored that feeling, getting the crowd involved. So if you want to look at it that way, you could say that maybe the original crowd intention of listening to the Sgt. Pepper's Band actually now is enhanced by this new release. And one of the things I got to bring up, I don't know what it is, but one of the biggest thrills that I have on this new 50th anniversary release is one of my favorite things about the whole thing is I like the oohs and the ahs, the backgrounds, harmonies. I love the way they're loud and brought up. At least to me, I never recall hearing the oohs and the ahs, especially the ooh part. It's sounding so loud. Big improvement there. When I'm 64 could very well be one of my, if not my favorite, one of my favorites of all these songs restored on this new edition. Then we get to Lovely Rita. And I like it better now that I've heard the CD 3 times and the vinyl once. But at first I thought I was missing a lot of stuff on there. It was buried in the mix, which I was referring to earlier. There's one thing, after the line when Paul's, and I don't want to get into singing, folks. You don't want me to sing, trust me on that. But when we hear at the beginning, filling in the ticket in a little white book, and then you hear this noise, I didn't know where the ch-ch-chs were. The first couple of times I heard them on the CD, really loud, I said, I don't hear them. They're buried in the mix, and I always like those. But they come in a little later. You do hear them, but they come in a little later, to my ears anyway. But now, since then, I'm happy to say that by playing the vinyl and playing the CDs a couple more times, I hear the ch-ch-chs now. But stuff like that is gone missing. So sometimes when you hear nuances, old nuances that you expect to hear from memory are gone. Good morning, good morning. Well, those of you who don't really like the song, a lot of people put good morning down. I enjoy it. I don't think it's one of the best songs, but I enjoy it. It has new life here. I mean, Ringo's drums again, loud and pronounced, the way they kick in, bang, pow. But just don't listen to the CD at top volume because it was too much. I was telling everybody at first that the drums on this new album are too much, I said, because I had listened at too high a volume, and it's already high enough. But the drums are really powerful. Now, the Sergeant Pepper reprise, what I like about it the best, I got to tell you, one of the things I despise, folks, hate with a passion about the Sergeant Pepper mono version, the original mono version, is I don't know what you call it, but the tape start. When you hear the crowd noise, you could hear the tape start, and then you hear the crowd. I always hated that. So funny. It sounded like somebody was standing with their finger on a tape, and just pressed the start button just in time to get the sound effects on. And I'm glad that that's gone. I didn't decide for that at all here. So I'm glad that that tape bloop is gone here. And again, it rocks. It's strong, stronger than I've heard it before, the reprise. And at the very end, they've retained the version with Paul, shouting all kinds of nonsense, whatever he's saying. At the end. All right, and I'm going to get to the next song, arguably everybody's favorite. I don't know. A Day in the Life, the classic. I wasn't that impressed with A Day in the Life. It certainly isn't bad. But I think I was perfectly okay with A Day in the Life before they remixed it here. I don't see any great gains in it. I don't see anything terrible, but I don't see any great newness or anything different in here. As a matter of fact, every time I listen to it on the CD and even on the vinyl, Ringo's drums, the little drums that he does, the drum filling that he does here, always sounded good on its own. It didn't need to be over accentuated. And every time I listened in the car or over here, I heard vibrations with the drums. A little. I don't think you're supposed to hear vibrations. Maybe it's just me. I mean, whatever. The speaker would vibrate. The car, the frame of the car, windows, you'd hear a little, because I just think maybe they overdid it a little bit, or Giles overdid it a little bit. The jury's out on that, So I'm just going to say I didn't notice anything great about Day in the Life. It's not terrible. It doesn't seem greatly improved to my ears yet. So, a little bit about, I think about it, about Giles Martin himself as a producer. As I say, I have mixed feelings about it. A lot of people, I read another message board where a lot of audio files were on there complaining about the sound of this new album. It was too much to them. It was too loud, and this, that, and the other thing. And somebody responded. I don't have the exact quote here, but somebody said, unless I wrote it down on the first page. Oh yeah, somebody said, I see we got a lot of mini George Martins around here, he said, who are jealous of Giles Martin by calling Giles Martin, quote, a cowboy who never should be let near this material. And they say they think that Giles Martin is unfairly being criticized. And look, guys, personally, one of the things I kind of value about myself and I'm proud of is that I'm not one of those Beatle fans who unconditionally loves everything the Beatles ever did or anything that's ever done about them. I find that sometimes it's great, but sometimes some of the stuff, particularly stuff that they've coming out with since their breakup, is not perfect. And a lot of times people really frown down on that. So this guy here, talking about the mini George Martins, I started thinking to myself, well, if Giles Martin isn't the king of being the mini George Martins himself, who is? I mean, obviously he's qualified in the sense that he's the son of the great George Martin. I've always considered George Martin, I don't know what you call it, irreplaceable and essential for the Beatles' success. And I always consider George Martin to be the real fifth Beatle, bar none. But just because Giles Martin bears his last name, is he necessarily the best person for this? Now I know he knew his dad. Obviously, worked with his dad. They worked together on the Love Project and so on. So I mean, he's got some credits, obviously. But I just didn't like this one guy writing, calling people. Anybody who had something negative to say about this said, "What do you think? You're a bunch of mini George Martins. What do you think? You're just jealous." I don't think people. He actually said this guy. He said that they were jealous because we wish that we could go in there and produce ourselves what we want. Look, just because you criticize anything, a movie, a record, doesn't mean you're jealous and doesn't mean that you want to make it yourself. That's ridiculous. I have no interest whatsoever in remixing the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper album, but there's some things I like and some I don't. And when it comes to Giles Martin, quite frankly, for me, it's a mixed bag. Okay, I think he did a lot of great stuff with the One Plus, and some of the songs I didn't like what he did to them, and that's a whole other story. Now, as I say, the vinyl album, this is great. A friend of mine who is not a big Beatles fan at all, but loves Sgt. Pepper, asked me, should I get the vinyl album? And I had to think about it for a while. And after a while, I said, yeah, I think you should. I didn't want to steer him wrong because this is near $40 for 2 discs. And I think that if you're a casual fan, just getting getting just either the 2 CD set or the single CD is fine. Or if you want to get the vinyl, that's fine. If you are, like me, a true Beatlemaniac, a true Beatle fanatic, I don't want to hear any excuses, folks. Let the slings and arrows come. You got to have this. You got to have the 6 CD box set, or 6 disc set, which I'll talk a little bit about now. First of all, you're missing some of the material. If you just get the 2 CD set, you're missing some of the bonus material. Yeah, this is going to go well over half an hour, sorry. But the whole thing with me is I've just gotten done talking about the album. I'm going to say just a little bit about the bonus material. Me personally, the reason I bought this big set is because I want the bonus material. The way I feel, if they never remix these albums again, I'd be fine with the ones we have over here for years. I didn't buy this because I want to hear another remix of Sgt. Pepper, even though I just got done pretty much giving it a positive review. I bought it for the bonus tracks. That's what I want. As far as I'm concerned, they could just leave the album proper out of this. Although, of course, it's good to have it just because you want to have the whole picture. But I'm just looking for outtakes and bonus tracks and demos and things like that. I also want to mention before I forget that when we're dealing with studio outtakes, one thing I always love and I get really tickled over is being able to hear the studio dialogue, the chat of the Beatles talking to one another, George Martin's voice. Anytime we get even another syllable as a fly on the wall in the studio to hear what actually was talked about or what they said or what they joked about or anything, instructions, that's always a benefit to me. I mean, that's the kind of thing as a fan I get excited about. And you can really hear, at least to me, in these sessions, that Paul is really giving a lot of the instructions. And even in one of the versions of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds at the end, I think Paul is trying to tell John how he thinks he ought to do it. So it's very interesting. This is the CD2, the Sgt. Pepper Sessions. You don't get everything on here if you buy just the 2 CD set. You're going to miss a lot of stuff. This disc isn't going to be on there. But this has like the evolution of the Strawberry Fields Forever song. It's got stuff on here. I think it's got a couple of day in the life things. Yeah, the one thing I was alluding to that I was disappointed at is that there's two bonus CDs, 2 bonus CDs on available inside the box set, the big set. And I was disappointed and complaining a little that they kind of repeated a lot of stuff. I didn't expect that. I expected that both of these discs were going to be exclusive to each other, that they were both going to have different material. I hadn't read the notes before. And I found out that they repeated stuff. Although there's new things on the one disc that aren't on the other disc, blah, blah, and vice versa. The thing is that it seems like the disc that comes after this is the album in more chronological order that repeats stuff. So I know I'm sounding gobbledygook here. The bottom line is, out of the 2 bonus CDs, they repeat some stuff. So I didn't know if that was necessary. I kind of got disappointed in that. I went going in, I thought it was going to be 2 CD bonuses of complete new stuff. Looking at my notes here, before I go, I should mention the Blu-ray and DVD. Now, a lot of people are talking about the Blu-ray 5.1 mixes that are on the Blu-ray. I don't have 5.1 capability right now, so I'm not even going to talk about that. I'll leave that to a lot of other people making great videos on this. A lot of you out there are making your own. But I will talk a little bit about the making of Sgt. Pepper. The making of Sgt. Pepper is on a Blu-ray and a DVD that come with this box set. Can't get it on the other editions. You have to buy the big box. I had seen and I own already, as a lot of us do through the grapevine, we have seen and have the Making of Sergeant Pepper documentary, which I think was done in 1992. And it's funny, at the time when I first saw the Making of Sergeant Pepper in the early 90s, I really thought that it was fantastic. And it's still very interesting, very good. But this many years later, it's not quite as fantastic as I thought it was going to be. Certainly worth the watch, certainly worth having, spinning every now and then. You got interviews new at the time with Ringo and with Paul and George. I don't think enough was represented in John. It was too bad they couldn't somehow use more John. And it's funny, when I rewatch this, it's funny how time can change your memory. When I rewatched this, it looked to me as though for some reason there wasn't enough given to the stories. Like, we all know the story of Strawberry Fields Forever and how they wanted two different versions. John wanted two different versions, and George Martin was able to vary the speed to put them together. Actually, that little bit of information, unless I nod it off, is not addressed. That particular point is not addressed in it. And I don't think he talked about, again, unless I'm snoozing in between here, being for the benefit of Mr. Kite, he left out the bit about throwing the tape loops up in the air and joining them together to get the carnival fairground sound. But it's a small beef. Again, I also should mention that the Blu-ray and the DVD also have the promotional films for Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, and A Day in the Life. And, you have those already if you have the 1+ set. But it's nice to have them all together here. And I don't know the purpose of having a DVD and a Blu-ray together. Maybe some people have DVD capability, don't have Blu-ray capability, whatever. But once you have the Blu-ray, you don't really need the DVD. And before I go, I forgot to mention that going back to these bonus outtakes, which is the real reason I'm here, real reason I'm into this. I've never been a big fan of instrumentals, backing tracks, instrumental versions, and there's a lot of those on here, a lot of instrumentals, but the vocals are really great. It's the vocal alternates that I really like off the top of my head, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. There's a great alternate vocal of Fixing a Hole. Of course, the A Day in the Life performance, take one. Sergeant Pepper, when Paul screams at the end, I feel it, and all that at the end. Okay, so my final words on this, let's put it this way. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band was always an album I didn't even put maybe in the top 5, maybe somewhere around 6 or something like that. I've always respected it, always liked it for what it was, but thought it was just kind of, while innovative, just wasn't one of my favorites. This new mix, this very punchy, upfront, hard-driven, rocking in your face kind of mix, makes me realize just what a masterpiece it truly is. And I think that for me, and I hope a lot of you out there, it's going to completely change the reputation that this album has gotten in recent years. It's become considered so dated, so of its period, which it's still that. But I think with this new mix, it's actually something even more. Okay, that's it, everybody. Thanks.